Bright morning, everyone. I am Julian Castañares from BSTM2C, and in this video, we will talk about the cultural discrepancies between the France and the Philippines. But before that, I would like to explain what is the cultural discrepancies. So when we say cultural discrepancy, it refers to the differences and variations between the culture around the world, and these differences can be seen in language, customs, traditions, belief, and our social behaviors. So, why do we have different cultures? Well, it is mainly because of various factors like in geography, history, environment, as well as the social interaction, which is the highlight in these discrepancies. Well, each community develops its own way of life based on its experience and its surroundings. So, our first discrepancy is the formality in addressing others in public. So in France, people are very particularly about how they address others in public, and they often use the formal titles like moi or madame, and say voi, which is the formal you instead of tu, the casual version of you, especially with the strangers or authority figures around them. While here in the Philippines, we use honorifics such as po and opo, and added to the faces to show differences, particularly in elders and higher status individuals. And formal titles like sir and mom are also common here in public interactions. That's because French use the title stems from formal decorum, while here in the Philippines, linguistic markers reflect a deep respect, humility, and acknowledgement for our social hierarchy in the Philippines. Next discrepancy is the body language and the gesture. So in France, French people generally keep gestures subtle because they maintain eye contact and use few hand gestures. That's because they like to keep their personal space in public, while here in the Philippines, Filipino are more expressive non-verbally. We might point our lips, raise our eyebrows to say yes, or do the mano gestures, which is the placing elder's hand on their forehead as a sign of respect. That's because here in the Philippines, actions are more speak louder than words, and verbally cues are the natural part of our communication here. While in France, words are mainly focused, and with gesture used, they are used only more sparingly, or sometimes lang sila express using gestures. Our third discrepancy is the dealing with disagreements. In France, it is normal or expected to speak up if you disagree, because in public debates or discussions, people are seen as a healthy way to share ideas, and people don't take it personally when you disagree. While here in the Philippines, the Filipino culture, it is opposite, because when you disagree openly, especially in public, it can feel disrespectful or embarrassing to us. Instead, we people often keep quiet or agree politely, or we can address the issues later in private. That's because in French society, they value open expression and critical thinking, while here in the Filipino society, we prioritize harmony and avoid public conflict to keep our relationship smooth. Next discrepancy is what's said versus what meant. So in France, French people communication usually depends on the word themselves, and what's said is what meant, because people don't expect you to read between their lines, especially in their public or professional settings. While here in the Philippines, what someone means isn't always fully said out. loud because people or we people here in the Philippines rely on facial expressions, the tone of voice, or even our body language to get the full message across. And this is especially true in close-knit or informal public interactions because in France, French people follows a low context style words and it mattered the most to them. While here in the Philippines, we uses the high context style, relationship, and nonverbal cues and settings, we can add meaning to it. Next discrepancy is what's said versus what meant. So in France, French people communication usually depends on the word themselves. And what's said is what meant. Because people don't expect you to read between their lines, especially in their public or professional settings. While here in the Philippines, what someone means isn't always fully said out loud because people or we people here in the Philippines rely on facial expressions, the tone of voice, or even our body language to get the full message across. And this is especially true in close-knit or informal public interactions because in France, French people follows a low context style words and it mattered the most to them. While here in the Philippines, we uses the high context style, relationship, and nonverbal cues and settings, we can add meaning to it. The last discrepancy is saying things directly versus being careful with the words. In France, French people tend to say what exactly they think, or if there is wrong or needs to be addressed or corrected, they say it straight away because for them it's not meant to be rude. It's just how they value honesty and they want clear communication in their country. On the other hand, here in the Philippines, we are more careful with our words, especially in a public sector or in public setting. Because for example, if we say no directly, they might say maybe or try again or I'll try later. This because Filipino people want to avoid hurting someone's feeling or they want to avoid causing conflict. And the reason why is in France culture, they see it more direct or as respectful to them if we said directly what we want to say, while in the Philippines, kindness often means protecting others from embarrassing or it is being less direct or to avoid conflict. So in summary, in terms of communication in France and the Philippines, it differs significantly in style and approach because in French, communication is typically direct, verbal, and low context, meaning people value charity, open expression, and straightforwardness. In contrast, here in the Philippines, Filipino communication is more indirect and high context, and we rely on heavily nonverbal cues, tone, and social context because Filipino often avoid direct confrontation to maintain harmony and to show respect to others, especially towards the authority, and while the French view directness as a sign of honesty and respect for individual opinions. That's all. Thank you.